Welcome to YogiViews, where my guest is yoga itself, through interviewing those who practice it, teach it, sell it, or simply love it. I am Antonio Saucis. Union is the core concept of yoga, and it refers to the fact that everything that exists functions as a unit, interconnected in an intimate way that leaves nothing out. On one hand, this means that just as in the universe at large, within our own lives, every word, every thought, every action reflects who we are, speaks about us in a precise way. On the other, it means that nothing we can do, think, or speak, we can do without it affecting the rest of our existence, or the universe at large. The phrase, "we are one," is perhaps the most popular way of expressing this concept. Related to it is another concept that is essential to yoga practice and that refers to the fact that because of this intrinsic union of all existing things, because we are one with everything else, we intrinsically participate, have inside all the knowledge of the universe and how it works. We come to this life equipped with all the knowledge we need to live a life, a good life. But for some reason, we've forgotten. And as a result, we seek outside. We think that the next job, the next house, or the next relationship is going to give us that happiness we're looking for. Yoga reminds us to go within, to look inside where this precious knowledge lies. In fact, yoga practice is only destined to remind us of that knowledge by directing the awareness within. So then, outside of the practice space, outside of the studio, in our everyday life, we can exercise that knowledge. A group of yoga teachers have taken this idea to heart and formed an organization called Off the Mat and Into the World. The expression off the mat refers to the sticky mat practitioners in the United States use to practice on. Off the mat uses the power of yoga to inspire conscious, sustainable activism and ignite grassroots social change. They do this by facilitating personal empowerment through leadership trainings, fostering community collaboration, and initiating local and global service projects. One of their initiatives is YogaVotes, a nonpartisan campaign to awaken a new demographic of mindful voters, sparking higher voter turnout amongst the 20 million United States citizens who practice yoga. At a recent gathering in San Francisco, I had the opportunity to interview Kerri Kelley, Off the Mat's executive director, who shared with me her passion for connecting who we are as yogis with who we are as voters.
So I have the pleasure of being here with Kerri Kelley, who is the executive director of YogaVotes. And rather than me telling you what YogaVotes is, I'm going to let Kelly explain that to us. Thanks for speaking with us.
Oh, you got it. Do you want me to grab this?
I grab it.
So YogaVotes is a nonpartisan effort sponsored by Off the Mat Into the World, which is an organization bridging yoga and activism. And over the last 5 years, we've been watching the yoga community take their practice off of their mat in the way in which they've been serving their community, in the way in which they buy food, in the way in which they choose which clothes to wear, what car to buy, where to travel. And so we started to see that yogis were really living their practice in many ways and taking yoga into the political realm, and the way in which we make choices and the way in which we vote seemed like a natural next step. And so this campaign is all about mobilizing the yoga community to step up and speak up, to find their voice, to find their vote, and to participate in the way in which we participate on the mat. We call it inside-out voting. It's about getting really clear about who you are and what you stand for, what issues matter to you, what's at stake for you in this election, getting informed about those issues, getting aware, and then voting from a really authentic and embodied place. And I think what's happening in the political world right now often causes us to react a lot to what we see in the media and to the rhetoric and to the divisiveness and the separation that we feel in politics. And so we're really trying to encourage yogis to step into that space, even though it's uncomfortable, even though it can feel separate and almost non-yogic at times, but breathe some yoga, breathe their practice and their values into that process, so that we could hopefully make a difference in the way in which politics is done.
And now, perhaps that is the first tier of intention, I would say. But what is the hope for the larger picture of society or of political life to bring yoga into it?
Yeah, you're right. This is a baby step. Like with any practice that you build on the mat, you begin with foundation. And for us, the foundation is getting yogis to find their voice and to participate in a way that feels conscious and compassionate. I think there's endless possibilities, and we get asked this question all the time. And I think a lot of what is going to happen is going to be informed by what this community does and by the ways in which we show up. Certainly, one of our long-term goals is to transform the way in which we participate in civic life, in politics. Because I think what we found in a lot of our research and in a lot of our surveys is that oftentimes the way in which we participate or contribute can be very unconscious. If we contribute at all, we've also heard from a lot of people that they're very deliberately turning away from the process because it feels broken or separate, or because they feel like their vote doesn't matter. And so I think the first step for us is to get people to realize that it's important that we take action, and it's yogic that we take action, right? Yoga is not about being passive or about taking detours or about bypassing what's uncomfortable or what's dark or the shadow. It's about going in and going through. And so we're really trying to create a space where we can confront some of the difficult issues that we're facing and get informed and take action in a way that feels authentic. And then certainly, if we can bring our yogic values, the values of speaking truth to power, the values of compassion and concern, the values of inclusivity into a process that often feels like the opposite of that, we could change the game. And the way that we can change the game is because we're 20 million large in the United States. 1 out of every 15 people does yoga. And so we're a community of numbers. We're a community of conscious people that are living their practice and in every way off the mat. And the more that we can bring our practice to the ways in which we serve and the ways in which we engage, the more that we can be the change, the more that we can help transform that process from the inside out. So it's really not about us telling people what to do or what to believe or how to do it. It's about us doing it. It's about us modeling what it is to engage in a debate that could be fierce and very different, but to do it in a way that's that truly listens, do it in a way that's compassionate to where the other person is coming from, and stand very firmly in our truth and in what we stand for. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's also talk of this community becoming a constituency at some point, and I think for us to evolve into that, we'll have to get some consensus around what are the values that do in fact define us as a community. And what would that look like if we were a party or a constituency? And I think that's yet to be determined. But I think in this first campaign, one of the things that we're really trying to do is we're trying to listen and learn and really understand how we're beginning. And what yogis are standing for and standing in. And I think the more that we do that, the more we show up and figure out our place in this process, the more we're going to know where we need to go next, whether that's advocacy, whether that's we remain a nonpartisan voter service community, whether that's a constituency of values-based voters. I mean, I think all of that is possible, and I think all of that could make a difference. But we're really looking to this community to tell us where we go next.
And you're referring to this organization as nonpartisan, but have you found that there is a party that is closer to accepting this idea of mixing yoga and politics, or understanding politics under a yogic point of view, or do you find that it's the same in all parties?
Mm-hmm. It's really hard to say. We're just beginning, but we just came back from the RNC and the DNC. We were there with Huffington Post and created a space for delegates to come decompress and recharge, and it was really about getting politicians to experience firsthand the practice of mindfulness and how it could affect them personally, and in the way in which they engage in this really highly charged environment that is the conventions, so that maybe they could see another way of doing things. And we definitely got far more traffic at the DNC than we did at the RNC. And yet at the RNC, we had really beautiful, profound experiences. People from the Romney Party came and got services and engaged and did yoga and meditated. And so there was definitely a presence and a curiosity and an exploration. But I think the concept of mindfulness in politics is definitely emerging more so from the progressive side. And with regards to yogis, we're hearing lots of different yogis speak their truth and say where they stand and what they believe in. I think it's easy to make assumptions that this community falls to the left, given what we believe and where we know some of the more popular teachers to stand. But what we're trying to do is just stay really inclusive in this moment and create space for everybody's voice and not turn anybody away. Because that feels like that's what yoga is. Yoga is not dogmatic, right? Yoga is a space for everybody to live in their truth and to speak and act from that place. And so we're trying to begin in that way. But as we go, we're definitely observing different ways of being, and it's been interesting to be at the RNC and the DNC and to compare. And we came into different obstacles at both. But we definitely saw, I think, a bigger a receptivity at the DNC that we didn't see at the RNC, and I guess you could make that assumption. But I think the yogis will tell. I think this community will say where they want to stand in the future.
When you were mentioning dogma, I was somehow remembering the problems that yoga has had, perhaps with religion, which is another place where a lot of religions would not accept yoga because, number one, yoga was casted as part of Hinduism, but also because of just it going to spiritual practices. Politics is another place where there's a lot of dogma. So how easy or how difficult it is for you personally to stay away from partisan comments or from,
Yeah, really hard. It's been, there was a point in this campaign where myself and the leaders of Off the Mat had to make a decision as to whether we were going to be partisan or nonpartisan. And that was a fierce discussion because there's a lot at stake in this election, and the issues could not be further apart. And we are not neutral people. We very clearly stand in what we believe, and we've been advocating for that for many years within the Off the Mat community. And we had to make a decision to let go of the outcome of this election in order to be nonpartisan, and it just felt like that was the right thing to do, because I think we're coming into this not as a politician, but as a yoga teacher, and as a yoga teacher, it's our job to make space for everybody and to not tell people how it's done or how to do it, but to invite them to discover that for themselves. And I think when we made that distinction that, like, we're not coming into this as politicians, we're coming into this as yoga teachers, and we want to make space for everyone's voice, and we want to get everybody to speak up. It became very clear to us that that was the path that we needed to take, and in taking that path, we needed to let go of the outcome of this campaign and let go of our intention to influence the outcome. And that was very difficult for us, and we all, behind the scenes, I think, know where we stand and still fiercely stand in it. But I also think that even over the experience that we've had over the last couple months, I think we believe as firmly now than we did when we made that decision that it matters that we're inclusive. It is yogic that we're inclusive, and some people might say that that's, you know, ducking the issue, but we would say that's empowerment. And you know, we've been working with the League of Women Voters for the last year. They've really been advising us, and the direction that they gave us is it doesn't work to tell people who to vote for. What's actually effective in getting voters to really show up is to ask them what they think, and to give them the tools and the information that they need to make a decision for themselves. And the more we learned about voter behavior, and that empowerment actually was an effective method of increasing voter turnout, we knew that that was the way we needed to go.
And in a way is within the practice of yoga, because as we know, success in yoga practice or in yoga advancement has to do with practice itself and with non-attachment, with really letting go of your idea of what should happen to really see what happens. It seems also that if your intention is to get people to vote, what they vote is not really the point.
Yeah, you know, I think it's to get, so I think our intention is twofold. I think it's to get people to vote, but also to support them in the way in which they vote, if that makes sense, right? Because yoga is about the process and the journey, right? It's not about the outcome. And so we don't want people to just vote just to vote. We want people to contemplate their vote. We want them to really look inside for the issues that are relevant to them, and for the issues that they care about and that matter most to them. We want them to get educated and informed on those issues. We want them to engage in dialogue in the context of community so that they can learn from one another. And we want people to vote from a really authentic and embodied place. And so yes, we have to let go of what they vote for, but we are, I would say, invested in the way in which they vote. And we just created a curriculum for what we're calling voting circles. They're kind of our version of voting parties. And they're small circles that we're seeding all around the country, led by leaders within the organization, where leaders facilitate a group of their peers through a process of inside-out voting, where they create a space for their peers to really connect to what's important to them, and to proclaim that, to speak truth to like what matters for me in this election is. And then they're going to give them all of the ballot information that's happening at their local level. And they're creating a really compassionate debate and dialogue and process of people really figuring out which candidates and which propositions are closest to where they stand on the ballot, because nothing will be exactly where you stand. That's just unfortunately not realistic. But we want people, before they react to candidates, we want them first to like get clear about where they stand and what issues are important to them, and then they can make decisions based on like where the candidates stand in relationship to their issues. And so the process, I think, is really important, and I think that's where yoga kind of brings a really unique added value to politics, is we're really trying to hold space for a process that is inside out, that is contemplative, that is embodied, that is authentic and inclusive of everyone's point of view, and that gives people a really confident foundation to vote from.
What have you found is the response of the yogis?
I think we've had a really positive response from a lot of yogis. You know, I think when we first started this, I think we heard from the community that people were really throwing the towel in on politics, and that was frightening, right? Because we're a community of powerful, privileged, informed citizens, and so you know, there's a great opportunity, in fact, for us to be showing up. And yet, as we've gone along, and it's been like a long road, I think people are making the connection that yoga is full participation in every aspect of their life, and politics can't be an exception to that, right? Like it's not like I'm going to be yogic in all aspects of my life except politics. And so I think people are getting definitely that they've got to step in, right? We've got to step in. And I think when we talk about politics and call it for what it is, it's messy, it's broken, it's divisive at times, it can be mean. I think it gives people permission to be like, oh yeah, it is all those things. And we have to step in anyway. So I think people are starting to shift on that point. We've had a ton of enthusiasm from people that I think have been antsy, that have been wanting to take their yoga in a different direction, and that are really excited to bring the values that they practice and live so fiercely into this place that feels challenging right now in the moment. We have a lot of people in this community that are very clear about where they stand, and that's really exciting. You know, just because we're nonpartisan doesn't mean everyone else should be nonpartisan. We're here to be a container, but we want everybody to step up and speak out, speak loudly for what they believe in. And so a lot of people are, and we're celebrating that. You know, everybody should be speaking their truth, and we should also respect where one another stands and be really yogic in the way in which we receive our diversity and we receive one another's stance and their place in the movement. So it's been a really good, you know, we've had a great response, and we've also been learning along the way, and as we've stepped further and further into this campaign, navigating some of the pushback and learning how to respond to it. And that's been a really cool process for us. Like, I don't care, it's broken, or my vote doesn't matter, or I feel intimidated and I'm not informed, and what if I make a mistake? And so it's been really good for us to come up against those blocks and learn how to navigate them and really listen to where people are and why they don't want to participate or why they feel hopeless. And that's really helped inform how we want to support this community over the next couple weeks.
And I know you cater mainly to yogis, but I'm sure that perhaps some regular voters or regular citizens also come in through the door of yoga because of your initiative. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, we've had a really good response from a lot of the people that we met at the DNC and the RNC. The League of Women Voters has been a really big partner to us, and they've been sending a lot of people our way because they really love that what we're bringing to the political environment is heart. Like, vote with your heart. Nobody else in the political environment are saying that. So I think what we're offering is really refreshing, no matter who you are, whether you have a yoga practice or a mindfulness practice or a you know, sit on your couch practice. I think inviting people to choose for themselves, inviting people to listen to their heart, inviting people to show up even despite the mess, I think is resonating with people. I think it's cutting through, and we're doing a ton of work in swing states, and in swing states in particular, all they hear, I mean, we're not in a swing state, but in a swing state, it's like commercial after commercial after commercial that's telling you who you should vote for or who not to vote for, and this person's bad and that person's terrible. And so I think there's something that's really breakthrough about this message of, no, really, who do you want to vote for? And what do you think? And if you don't know, how can we help you know? How can we help you know for you, and how can we help you get informed? And so I think that's a refreshing message that's resonating beyond the yoga community. And we've even done a spin-off within the mindfulness community called Mindful Votes, which is really taking the YogaVotes platform and turning it towards the mindful community and really mobilizing and rallying the mindful community to get off their cushions and into the polls. And so we're finding that there's something universal about this idea that empowered voting makes a difference, and really truly does give voters a sense of like, my vote matters, and my voice matters, and where I stand matters, and there's something just incredibly, I think, refreshing about bringing heart into the conversation.
And talking about heart, we know, or it is popular knowledge, that the yoga that addresses the heart is bhakti yoga, the devotional yoga. Would you say that that branch of yoga has any deeper influence on your endeavors, or is there any other branch of yoga that you think you derive more inspiration or information from?
I can't say actually that we're resonating with one style or discipline than another. I feel like the leaders that we've brought together, we have almost 500 leaders around the country who have stepped in and said, I really want to participate and help others participate, have come from all courses, all different styles of yoga. I think it's not. I think it's less about like the kind of yoga that you come from and more about like where you are in your practice and what it means to live your yoga. And I think that message applies to everybody. I think how people participate might be informed by their discipline. You know what I mean? And we're making space in this campaign for all different types of leadership. So that might in fact be informed by the kind of yoga that people practice. But I don't think that this campaign resonates with one or another. I feel like one of the things that we're really trying to do is we're trying to break through and unite the community across different styles, studios, disciplines, and get people just to say yes to showing up. Yeah.
What would you say is the most important value that politics can take from yoga?
I think love. I think love and compassion. I think if we all paused and came to the table from a place of love and compassion. I know that sounds fluffy, but I really believe that like if we really checked in with that and engaged from that place as politicians or as activists or as lobbyists, I think it would be a different conversation. I think when we're coming to the table from a place of fear, that's what's creating all the separation. I think it's as simple as like choose to come from a place of love. Choose to come from a place of love. And that will help, I think, bridge difference. And I think that will help people across the aisle have more effective conversations. It might not mean that everyone agrees, and I don't think it ever will, but it might change the way in which we work with one another.
Yeah. So I'm going to be devil's advocate. Okay. Because the love for people can make you be against war. The love for your country can make you justify war. And it's love. How would you reconcile those two in a yogic way?
I don't know actually if that's love. So I would first get people to really check in with like, is it really love or is it fear that's making you choose war? Often it's fear.
So you would say consciousness would be the point.
Yeah, I do, I guess. And I think, yeah, and then we have to go.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh, please, and I wish you the best, and I hope that more and more yogis get to vote.
I hope so. We're learning a lot, and I think there's more to come. So thanks for creating this space.
Thank you, Kerri.
Yeah, you got it. Namaste.
Namaste.
Certainly, this is an inspiring way of taking the knowledge of yoga and applying it to important aspects of personal and civil life. We wish YogaVotes all the best in their project. I hope you liked our show today. And if you care to let me know, shoot me an email at antonio@yogiviews.com. I look forward to seeing you the next time.